Let's see if I can actually hit record. Yay! I hit record instead of stop. All right. So Frank, go ahead and do your promo.
So are we recording now?
You are recording right now.
Okay, good. I'm Frank Forte. I'm here looking at a beach, oceanside. I'm a little envious, but I'm excited to be here on Vroom Vroom Veer and look forward to telling you about all my past failures and all my pivots.
Perfect. Thanks, Frank. All right, I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Don Apuan. I hope I said that right. Thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
Thank you. I am doing awesome today. How are you?
I am doing as well as one can in the apocalypse. Let's go with that.
Yes, the Corona apocalypse.
Corona apocalypse. Corona lips. Anyway, so you are at Don Apuan, and I'm going to screw that up all day, I'm sure.
All good.
.com and talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your business today.
Yeah, I am an expert copywriter and funnel strategist. And what excites me the most about what I get to do is I support entrepreneurs in building their businesses and having more of an impact. So I use my writing to basically help them sell more things, make more money, and impact more people.
I like your little tagline. You've got a mission and it's big. I like that. I hope you like that too, because I
absolutely believe it.
Me too. Yes, I think we all have a mission, whether we know it or not. So anyway, so this is Vroom Vroom Veer. We can talk more about your business later, but you weren't always what is it? A copyright expert and a funnel strategist?
Correct.
So, before that, you did something else. So where did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up in Washington, kind of the Puget Sound region.
Nice spot.
Yes, beautiful. I love the mountains and the water. I'm very biased to this part of the country. Mount Rainier is my favorite place on earth. So I guess I grew up in a good place.
You did.
And yeah, I grew up on that mountain quite a bit, big hiking and camping family. And, one of my earliest memories, as kids, they're always asking you like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the common denominator of everything was just wanting to help people. I wanted to be a missionary. I wanted to be an ambulance driver or a paramedic. I wanted to be a doctor. Wow. But all of those things were helping people. And sure. To this day, I'm still helping people. It just has morphed into different ways throughout my life. So, I was a happy little girl, had fun in the outdoors. I grew up with 3 other siblings and, had a good childhood. Everybody has their rough spots, right?
Sure.
The tough things we go to. My parents divorced when I was 5, and that definitely flavored my childhood experience. But
was that pretty common for you when you were? So you would have been in kindergarten, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't not within my sphere of friends, I guess you would say. So my mom was a teacher at a Christian school, so I went to the school because I got to go for free, but I was very different than most of my classmates because we were not wealthy enough to have afforded the school. Had my mom not taught there, so that made me different. And then I was the only one I knew that had divorced parents.
Right.
So,
and this is Catholic kind or Christian kind?
It was a Christian school.
Oh, Christian, not Catholic. Okay.
Not Catholic. Nope.
Okay.
But yeah, I loved it there. It's one of my, like, I always look back on my childhood and say that my Christian school education was one of the best things that happened to me. I loved the school. I learned a ton. I was really challenged. I was a nerdy kid.
Nice.
I
Nerdy as in like academic nerdy kind of?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. We were talking about a science nerd earlier. Not
Right.
quite the nerdiness that I had, but no,
Right.
I like to tell my nerd moment story of when I was turning 10, and all I asked for my birthday was a desk so I could write my stories.
Wow.
And,
Now that's awesome.
and that is what I
Desk
got
to
for my
write your
birthday.
stories.
Yep.
Wow. You were on mission already. Good for you.
I didn't even know it.
Right.
At that time, I didn't even know.
But you wanted to
there was
write.
such a
You
thing as a
liked writing.
copywriter.
Right. Right. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Sure.
I still have those. Remember the black and white speckled composition books?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's what I would write my stories in.
I have several of those because I think I still have some blank ones because I went through that journaling phase. I should get back into journaling. It was fun.
Oh, 100%. I journal every day.
That morning pages thing. Have you ever tried that where you just like brain dump on 3 pages? That's fun. It's really good.
It is.
I want to do that again now. I'm going to go find those books. Yes. So yes, I know that. I know that black speckled composition book. Okay. So when I was 10, I think I was like, at some point I became the good at memorizing guy in Sunday school.
Yes.
So I would go home and memorize everything and then like go and regurgitate it. And then nobody wanted to play the game of, hey, who knows the 23rd Psalm?
Yeah.
Jeff, you can't play.
The question is, do you still remember some of those verses that you learned in childhood? 'Cause
Oh, man. Maybe not. Just
Maybe not.
probably only the highlights. Like,
yeah.
like the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. That's about all. That's it. I know there's some maketh me's in there. And it's all really good. I still shades my, the 23rd Psalm is really good. I think it's like a really good, that and like the Lord's Prayer is really good salve for shitty times, I think. I remember thinking like when I was a kid, sort of like that was a really good rock solid sort of like foundation of faith. You know, like I remember in Sunday school reading the 23rd Psalm over and over and over and over and over again and trying to figure out what the hell it meant. And
It's
then,
pretty deep for that age.
It's deep for a kid. But what I came up with was like imagining like the devil or a demon or something like, getting in my face and it's like drooly, bloody teeth are dripping shit on me. And then just going, whatever, and just rolling over and going to sleep. That's faith, right? Not being afraid of that because God will take care of me. That was as far as I got as a kid. Does that make sense? Yeah. Anyway, I digress as usual. Okay. So you grow up, you go to Christian school. I grew up as a Lutheran, so always fun to get a foundation in faith. Yes, I think that's important for, it doesn't even matter what it is, as long as there's some sort of faith. I like faith so much better than hope. But anyway, that's a long discussion. Anyway.
That is a really fascinating topic. Maybe we should do this again just on that topic.
We could do that. All you have to do is just think of Jim Carrey, if you ever hear him talk, uses this phrase that hope is a beggar. Have you ever heard that? That idea, that concept? So think about the whole idea of hope is like, it's okay. It's definitely better than, say, like fear, desperation, hunger, starvation, right? But you can do so much better with faith. Is I think because hope is just like, oh, if I can just grab that little piece of scrap of food or that, it's just begging, right? So you can do so much better than that as far as ideas go. Anyway, That's the hope is a beggar thing. Anyway.
Nice.
Nice.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd
Yes.
love to unpack that some more. That's a fun topic.
It is a fun topic. Anyway, let's move on. So you grow up and did you go to college?
I did. Yep. I actually went to Biola University down in Los Angeles. And
Wow.
I
Okay.
started as a bio pre-med student, but my first quarter or semester, I guess, I switched over to intercultural studies.
Okay.
I had had a pretty powerful experience on a mission trip when I was in high school down in Mexico. And I went into college. I mean, I liked science and, that was all good, but I didn't really know necessarily what I wanted to do with my life at that point, as many don't.
Right. I still don't know what I want to do with my life, and I'm
You still
51
don't.
years old. So I'm not going to grow up, so I don't have to figure out what I'm going to be.
Hilarious. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started school and just fell in love with the intercultural studies program and some of the professors in that program. So I decided to pursue that, and I graduated kind of went on hyperspeed. I graduated in 3 years.
Wow.
Because I didn't want to pay for a fourth. I was funding my own education and
Right.
was pretty determined to not have a mountain of debt. So my major was technically just to be a missionary as intercultural studies. And the emphasis was urban poor relief and development. So
Wow.
it did have some relation to work that I could do in America, but wasn't necessarily geared for that. And I had so many classmates who had, $80, $90, $100,000 of debt, and they wanted to be a missionary overseas. And I remember getting close to graduation and just watching people like break down in tears because they were like, I don't know how I'm going to pay this off and still, serve as a missionary, because that's so much money. And usually you have to raise your income as a missionary. So, fortunately, I graduated with only about $11,000 in debt because I worked full time during school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked myself nearly to death, but
hey, you were young. You can do it then.
I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. I mean, it's all mindset. And I paid off my college. I mean, Biola at the time was like $30,000 a year, and I paid it off 10 months after graduation. I was debt free.
Good for you. That's a good hack.
It is.
You hacked college a little bit.
I did hack it. I hacked it there was one semester I was enrolled in 4 universities because I had online classes at 3 other schools.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had 23 units total. And
all
I was
at once?
working about, yeah.
Wow. If anybody found out about it, they would have yelled at you, right?
Oh, I'm sure. And that was my senior year. So I was doing my senior thesis and I worked about 35 hours a week. So I've always been a hard worker. A lot of that was, staying busy and covering up. Like that was my survival mechanism, right? As a kid to sort of get through what had gone on in the family. And I always just dove, really deep into school because I was good at it. And
and you could see there's benefits and payoffs and stuff, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I did all the way through college. And then after college, you had that kind of like, oh, now what do I do?
Sure. Yeah. You've got this you could go like run some sort of social programs or something, right?
Yeah. I mean, my degree did not really qualify me for many jobs because if you're like, I could do social work, but most social work or counselors or anything like that need a master's. And I wasn't really interested in doing that. I really did want to get out on the mission field. I just didn't know what that would look like. And
you couldn't see the path, right?
No, sort of like manna in the desert, right? You just get one
you need
day
a little
at a time. Yep, exactly.
So did you get a job? Is that what happened?
I did. Yeah. I actually came back home after college and I got basically my high school job back. I was assistant manager of a music store. And after college, when I came back, because I had already worked there for several years during high school, the manager like basically had me running the store.
Sure. Nice.
I was full time, and that was good because that allowed me to pay off my loans.
Your
And then as soon
$11,000 of
as
student loans,
yeah, that was 10 months. And then 2 months after that, I went to Canada and spent a year doing mission work, basically in Vancouver, their downtown east side.
Love Vancouver.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever been to downtown east side. Where's that? Like, give me a landmark.
You probably have
Vancouver.
avoided it. It's sandwiched in between Gastown and Chinatown.
Yep. Okay. Never went there. I have been to Gastown though. So I might have.
Yeah. So it borders Gastown, but Gastown is kind of, the swanky,
right.
touristy
Nice.
spot.
Right.
And the downtown east side is right next to it, literally. And it's within 6 square blocks, there's 40,000 drug users.
Right. The homeless people.
And it's homeless. Yep. I lived in a
and addicted. When I did my psychology degree, one of the big aha things was like, what was it? How can we approach this? Most mentally ill people would rather identify as a drug addict than admit being mentally ill. That makes sense? It's easier to wear that, right? Does that make sense? I thought that
100%.
was fascinating. The stigma, right, of mental illness still.
Yep.
Yeah.
And mental illness accounts for at least 75% of the homeless population.
Right. We don't have really a homeless problem. We have a mental health non-program, a non-system.
100%.
The non-system, right? What was it? I remember reading an article about the de facto psychological system or psychiatric system, something like that, right? In the U.S., because there isn't one. There is no mental health system in this country. They call it one. They call it the de facto mental health system because there isn't one. Anyway, sorry.
Nope.
Get off soapbox.
Spent about 9 or 10 years within the homeless, working with the homeless and drug addicts and alcoholics, and sat in many, many city meetings and all of that. And it really is a mental health problem, not a homeless problem, not a housing problem.
Right.
Not even, yes, there's drugs, but the fact is that there's underlying issues that are mental health.
Right.
So, but nobody wants to deal with that. So
right.
We continue to have
cheaper,
all these other issues.
I still think it would be cheaper if people, right? I mean, think about all the money that we spend not dealing with the problem.
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
Oh, my gosh. Millions.
Yeah.
Millions and millions. And you still have people who, we've created a system where they're dependent. I worked for the Salvation Army for 9 years.
Wow. Okay.
And the program that I actually did in Vancouver was also with the Salvation Army.
Right.
And so they are really good at trying to actually teach and empower and change because, one of their slogans is not giving a hand out, but giving a hand up.
Right.
And like really wanting change and transformation. But, we were like the lone fish. Everybody else, all the other agencies that were getting government money, basically perpetuate the problem because they have a need to continue existing. I
totally, and I was in the Air Force 20 years. So yes. So I don't know.
Thank you for your service.
Well, yes, you're welcome. But I was coming at it with a stern eye at the moment. That it's one of the things that as you get higher, down below in the weeds where there's dudes on the ground launching aircraft. Yeah, that's all great, right? It's the people way above, like right below Congress, that are getting the money. Yeah, they'll never give money back at the end of the year. No,
Right. Well,
because
and if
that
you're
doesn't.
getting any government money,
Mhm.
you have to spend it or else they'll give you less.
Right.
So it forces you to
The
keep
systems are
creating a
built that way.
problem to
Right.
need the money.
Correct. A bigger problem. Your problem actually has to get worse every year
Yes.
in order
Yes.
to
And I
exist.
hated that
Mm.
because
It is
we were,
crazy, isn't it?
in our programs, we were helping people get jobs. And then, of course, as soon as you get a job, you lose your TANF and you lose your housing and like, all the assistance that you were getting. So,
Right.
our clients were like, well, I get more if I don't get a job.
Yeah. No, the
This is
incentives
not
are
how we're
all
helping our
wrong.
people.
Yeah, the incentive system is so screwed up. It's nuts. It's not
Yes.
actually there to help the people that they're supposed to help. Right? It's helping people keep jobs. It's really sad.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. So you do that for a while, and then I remember seeing in your bio you were a pastor for a while. How did that happen?
Yeah, so that actually was with the Salvation Army as well. So
Okay.
let's see, I did a year in Vancouver, BC, where I lived in the slum hotel and we did, ministry within the slum. And
Right.
then after that, I actually spent 2 years in Toronto living in a home for adults with disabilities. So I was a caregiver, like 24/7 caregiver for 2 years. And during that time is when I was feeling called to go to seminary
Okay.
with the Salvation Army. So after I was in Canada for 2 years, I came back to the States to care for my stepfather who was dying of cancer.
Wow.
And helped my mom out, taking him to chemo and radiation and all of that. And then the following year went to seminary with the Salvation Army. So the Salvation Army, which is not common knowledge for many people, is far more than just a thrift store or kettles.
Right. It's kind of a church.
Started as a church.
Right. It's kind of a church. Yeah.
Yeah, more than kind of.
It is a
Actually,
church.
good friends of ours just got transferred to Vegas from
Oh,
here
wow.
in Seattle.
Oh, nice.
So they're in charge of the whole Vegas region now for
They're
the Salvation
busy.
Army.
They're really busy.
Yes, I'm sure they are. So yeah, I went to that seminary. That was 2 years long, and then the Salvation Army is set up like the same system as the military. So you have ranks, we have uniforms. You basically sign over your rights to a lot of things.
Sure. You're joining an army, right?
Yep.
Okay.
You get moved every 3 to 5 years or so,
Okay.
sometimes less, to different locations for ministry. So I got married at the end of my seminary experience. So I got ordained and then like 2 weeks later got married to my husband, who had already been in the Salvation Army for many years at that point.
Okay.
And so then we became pastors together in the Seattle area. And we were there for 5 years in charge of an entire county. We were doing, about 80,000 services a year within our county for food boxes, hot meals, cold weather shelter, housing programs. Like, it was crazy. We had a staff of 5. And those 5 were not even full-time. We had, I think, 3 full-time employees, 2 part-time employees, and my husband and I. Plus, we had 3 kids of his from a first marriage. And then I had my daughter our 4th year there. So we were busy.
You were busy. You were moving.
We were busy, moving. Everett is where we were, which is...
I've actually heard of Everett. Yeah.
Yeah, Everett has actually been on the national news quite a few times for our bikini baristas. That's usually what lands us on national media.
Maybe. I don't remember that context. Bikini baristas. Okay. Oh, is that the drive-through bikini barista?
That's right. And
I have heard of that. Okay.
There was a big coup with the sheriff, and he was in cahoots with a particular bikini barista stand. It was a big hoodoo back when we were in charge. a couple of years ago. And, but Everett also has a huge drug problem, which, as we talked about, was mental health. So, you know, I had people threatening my life. We had people bring firearms to the church. You know, we were hosing off defecation from our building regularly because people would sleep there in the mornings or all night. They would sleep there. It was very rough. And it's interesting, even after our time in Everett, we were transferred to Seattle, and it was interesting to watch even just the roughness of the homeless population. So in Everett, it was much rougher. They were much meaner. You know, they would like yell and scream at us and threaten us and all this stuff. And when we got to Seattle, generally people were nicer.
Generally. Okay.
Not quite as intense. And they used to say like, oh, well, the really hard druggies go to Everett.
Wow. Okay.
But, you know, Seattle has deteriorated significantly just in the last couple of years as well. So I don't know.
Have you ever been hung around with the homeless in Portland?
I have not much. I mean, I've visited the city quite a few times, but and I know the Salvation Army has quite a few programs there, and I've heard it's rough, but I haven't to be able to compare, you know, their homeless population to Seattle's and Everett's. I've just been in Seattle and Everett. We got transferred down to Seattle, and I was working with actually homeless women, and then I worked at 2 of our confidential shelters for women who fled domestic violence situations.
Right.
So it was a little bit different than working with some of the men. My husband worked in the men's shelter, and they were an interesting crowd as well. Lots of veterans, actually. There. But
it's easier to get a vet like assistance, I've heard, because there's a lot of more programs available for vets, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot more government money.
Right.
And I mean, you know, there's a level of I feel like we should honor the fact that they laid their life down for our country.
Sure. Oh yeah, for sure. Being one, yeah, I get it. It's but I had just as an aside, so I had a buddy, I would put him in the mentally ill, but not a drug addict, strangely enough. But he had some sort of, I can't remember the DSM sort of like label that he had on him. But what I would say was he was clinically an asshole and he just couldn't help himself. But he ended up...
I feel like I've known a lot of those.
Right. I actually had to break up with him friends-wise just because of that, you know.
Oh my goodness.
Like, I have to love you from afar because he was clinically an asshole and also a dedicated mooch. How's that sound?
Exactly.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
they become, I feel like that population becomes experts at that.
Yeah.
And experts at lying. Like I got tired of being lied to.
Right.
And being played all the time. Like I just, it was weird how, you know, in certain circumstances, and you might relate to this from being in the military, like you develop a tough skin and you develop your survival mechanisms.
Well, yeah.
But
and
then
you're
you
also
realize,
trying to help too. Right. So, right. But they're playing that on that, right? Is that where you're
for
going?
sure. 100%.
Right. Yeah.
And I realized after leaving, like it was quite funny, actually. I went to a MOPS group. So that's mothers of preschoolers. Okay. And it's a like night and day difference in population, right? It's Christian women who all have babies and preschoolers. And they were so nice to me. Like the biggest thing I got out of the couple of meetings that I went to was just like, I was like, why are they being like so nice for no reason? Like just to be nice, because most people were so mean to me all the time. Like I just was so used to being so guarded and so strong and all of this. And like it literally on several occasions brought me to tears of just like, they're just being nice to be nice. Like they don't have an agenda. They don't want something from me. They just are like loving human beings. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this
these
like
people
what normal life is supposed to be like?
Right. Well, I don't know about that, but I would say those people do exist. They're out there. Yes.
They are out there. And that was, I think, maybe the beginning of the turning point for me of being like, oh man, I don't know how much longer I could do that. And I didn't do it for much longer. That was about maybe a year before. So I had my daughter at that point, obviously, to be part of a mother group.
Right.
And eventually what happened, so we had been in Everett for 5 years, and we had a review by our regional directors. And my daughter was 1 at the time. They came in and they basically told us that we were failures and our stats for the church were not high enough. And that was a big blow. Like, I had a 1-year-old. I was doing everything still. You know, we're doing, like I said, 80,000 services a year, working our little tails off to be told that we were failures. And we weren't. I mean, our staff loved us. Our people, most of them that were, you know, in the church and things like that, loved us. Obviously, we had our hard mental health people that loved nobody. But it was extremely tough. And that is when they decided to move us to Seattle. And that also meant putting my daughter in childcare, which I wasn't ready for and she wasn't ready for. And
so she was still pretty young.
Yeah, she was a year. And I understand that many moms have to put their kids in childcare sooner or choose to. And it just wasn't for me. By the time they moved us, she was 16 months. So, but, you know, as parents, we had decided that we didn't want her in any kind of childcare until she was at least 2. And it was fine. Like, she was coming to the church with me, or I'd work from home. Nothing was getting dropped in the process. So it wasn't like I had just, like, I was getting paid for a job and wasn't showing up ever. Like, I was still doing everything just with her in tow.
Right.
So I kind of felt like Wonder Woman. And then they told me I was a failure. So that plunged me into deep depression. I was having panic attacks visiting the childcare centers and having trouble breathing, like severe anxiety. My husband thought I was going to commit suicide. It was dark. It was a really, really dark time in our lives. We went to leadership to share and just say, like, look, this is what's going on. And they basically were just like, yeah, we don't understand that. Like, when I said that I wanted to be home with her and able to raise her, they laughed and just said parents don't stay home with their kids anymore. And asked me, you know, what would you possibly do if you didn't work for us? And that was an incredible Hulk moment for me.
That's great. I want to keep that. That was an incredible Hulk moment for me. I've had those. Now I have to go identify them all.
Identify them, dude.
That's awesome.
You do not mess with Mama Bear.
No.
I mean, we know that about real bears, but he messed with the wrong Mama Bear on this one. And I was like, oh, no, you didn't. So that for me was like, game on. Huh?
That was it. Oh,
I was like, okay.
That's a good moment right there.
I'm going to show.
I can even hear the ching, dun, 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 dun. Dawn turns green.
Turns green.
All right, cool.
I know there has to be like some She-Hulk. Anyway. Maybe she's a different color, like purple or pink. Anyways, so that was a turning moment for me to decide that I was going to figure out a way. And I had no clue at that time what that would be. I started Googling work from home and, you know, silly things like couponing and transcription and doing surveys for money and like anything and everything.
eBay arbitrage, all these things. Yes.
Oh yeah. I looked at it all. Oh my goodness. I spent every night after she went to bed doing that and trying to figure out what I would do. And my daughter, I found a nanny that only had like 3 kids. So it was really an ideal situation for as ideal as it could be. I didn't take her to a daycare center because I literally could not. I everyone I had panic attacks at. So my daughter was there a couple days a week. You know, she was well loved, but she was still crying every night for a couple of hours.
Wow.
In that transition. And so there was a night where I was trying to soothe her, like outside her bedroom door, and she was crying, and you know, tears were just streaming down my face. And that was sort of my line in the sand. I was like, okay, nobody's going to save us. If this is going to change, then I have to change. Like, I have to be the one
Right.
to do this. And what came after that was, like I said, Googling work from home. And then I bought a digital marketing course, my first online course for $99 that taught me how to build funnels and run Facebook ads and sell things online.
Wow.
And I learned how to do that, and which is called affiliate marketing. So I did that secretly, since I was not allowed to make money in any other way as a Salvation Army officer.
Okay.
So
On the DL.
I learned the skills on the down low for sure.
Right.
But you know, to be honest, affiliate marketing is very much a man's world.
Okay.
And I just didn't find a lot of joy in it. I was fairly successful, but didn't find a lot of joy. And through that process, though, I discovered two things. The first was personal development, which saved my life. I always say entrepreneurship saved my life, because what I learned from that digital marketing course, because the teacher of that course would always talk about Tony Robbins and personal development. And
right.
they hosted a conference that I ended up going to in Vegas. That was just personal development. It wasn't anything digital marketing. And I went to that, and, you know, I was able to work through the depression. I was no longer having anxiety attacks. I was more excited for life, more hopeful.
And this was a Tony
joy.
Robbins? Tony Robbins?
I've never gone to Tony Robbins, but that's just an example of, like, most people know Tony Robbins within personal development.
So it was another PD, but not Tony, but in Vegas.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So they had this conference in Vegas, and just introducing the idea that anything is possible, that when you change your mindset, you can change your life. And
for sure.
That is what I did. Like, I absolutely changed my mindset. I changed who I was long before I was able to get out of that ministry job. It ended up getting, like, really crazy. We were working for another married couple who was not kind.
Okay.
And it was fairly abusive. And so we did that while I, figured out the side business for about 18 months. And then my husband and I were able to resign. Part of the reason it took so long is that within the Army, they provide a fully furnished home for us, cars to drive, like they pay for everything. And then we get a cash allowance for, food and clothes and things like that. But our allowance, like, just to get a place to leave, was 2 months of 100% of our salary from the Salvation Army, just to put our down payment on a place to live for our family.
Wow. Right.
So I had to save a lot in order to make the transition. But that is what we did. And in that process is when I discovered or rediscovered my love for writing and my gift with copywriting in particular. And then once I stopped doing the affiliate marketing, I was just doing copywriting and building funnels and helping people sell stuff by writing good sales pages for them.
Yeah.
So
it pays the bills.
Oh yes, it does. And it's so fun.
Right. And it
so
doesn't just
fun.
pay the bills either, because it just it makes it sound like you're just like doing something just for money. But I can tell just looking at your page that you're really trying to help people, accomplish their mission, right? And
exactly.
Even when they don't know they have one, which I think is amazing. So that's a really fun idea.
Well, thank you. It's a fun life. Oh my goodness. I never imagined life could be this phenomenal.
Right.
Honestly.
And very portable. You never have to go anywhere. You don't have to go to an office. You really don't even have to go to a conference. But wouldn't that be nice if you could?
Nowadays, yes. Now that we're all like itching to get out of our four walls. But no, it'll be good when we eventually can attend events. I did actually, I think I attended like 5 events in 8 months. That's what it was that first year. Like I really was getting out there and going strong because I was committed. I was like, I am going to figure this out because I know people have online businesses and I knew that it worked. And
everybody is out there, right? And everybody's trying to do their mission, right? But not everybody's making money. That's the monetization thing is always the thing. So if you can help anybody do that, that's pretty neat.
Yes.
Yes.
It provides for their families. Plus, like, I love how infinite because of the number of people, like there's that many different businesses, right? Like everybody has their own flavor, the own thing that they do. Like I've helped lactation specialists, horse trainers, wedding planners, business coaches, spiritual coaches, like such a wide variety of people.
Right.
And by helping them, they then help so many people. Like I love that ripple effect. Plus they're, providing for their kids and in many cases able to be home with their kids to raise them, which I am passionate about as well. So it's just win-win any way you look at it.
Right. Yeah. And they can be unstressed, unbusy, and healthy.
Oh, yes. And stressed and busy was like, those were the 2 words. Like my life as a pastor was stress and busy.
Yeah.
Stress and busy.
Yeah. You were on light speed like for that whole time. That's crazy. I had a little bit of that light speed life, but not so much. You'd be surprised that I would say the military as an overall lifestyle, it's kind of like you're either hair on fire or you're just bored out of your skull. It happens, it's just like, okay, this job I'm doing 0, and then your hair's on fire the next day. So, it sort of vacillates between. It's not like this happy
0
medium.
to 100.
Exactly. It's either I have one thing to do all day, or I never finish. Right? You can never finish this job. It's like I have 3 jobs, I can never finish one. Anyway, so okay, as we wrap up, which that was awesome. Thank you for sharing all your stories. They were great. But talk a little bit about how people can best get in touch with Dawn. Sorry.
Yeah, you can find me on my website, dawnapuan.com, if you're interested in taking a look at the services that I offer. And you can I have a free copy cheat sheet if you are an entrepreneur and are looking for help with how to write words that sell, which I also recommend this for parents, because let me tell you, learning copywriting has changed the game of parenting. So parents out there, you can benefit as well. And then I play a lot on Instagram, so just at @DawnUp1. You can find me there. Say hi. I'd love to meet you and say hello. And that's where I play.
Hey, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for about an hour.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. Have a good one. Thanks.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.